Other British element is Damon Hill, qualifying 26th and last, but at last qualifying for his Grand Prix debut. And he makes his debut here at a Silverstone circuit, where his father, the late Graham Hill, twice world champion, announced his retirement way back in 1975. So an emotional day for Damon Hill, but he's approaching the afternoon and the day's work in a very cool, very professional manner. Damon, describe a morning warm-up for us. How did that go for you?
Well, there was no problems with the car. It ran reliably for the whole half hour, and that's a good sign, because that's the main problem with, if you've got a problem in the warm-up, then you don't know what to expect for the race. But everything ran okay. What's your view of track conditions today? It's a little bit cool and there's been a bit of rain. Well, there's slight moisture in the track, but I think that it won't affect the lap times. If anything, these conditions are good for fast lap times. The tyres will work when they've done a few laps, but the air is cool enough for the engines not to suffer from heat. So I think it's good, especially for the driver as well. I don't like it too hot. What sort of decisions do you have to make now about the setup of the car for the race? Well, there's very little we can do. We were happy with the car in the warm-up. There weren't any apparent problems. We might take a small chance on one or two settings, but generally we'll leave it as it is. The mechanics will prepare the car, and I'll get some rest and some food and think about the start. But all that's the professional in you. Emotionally, what does this afternoon mean? Well, I have to say, you try and rule emotion out of it, because emotion tends to cloud your judgment a little bit sometimes. So I will reserve all my emotions till after the race is over. Tactics for the race, you're not overly ambitious. Just to finish? I think we're going to be struggling to compete, but if we can get to the end and even race with the people on the back of the grid, then that'll be a terrific result, I think. Okay, we look forward to hearing your story after the race. Have a good day. Thank you very much. So a finish is the target both for Damon Hill and the beleaguered Brabham team. At the other end of the grid, what about the World Championship itself, though? Mansell 32 points clear of his teammate Patrese. The reigning world champion Ayrton Senna some 48 points back. Ayrton gave us this assessment of Mansell's World Championship position.
He has once more a great opportunity to clinch the World Championship title. He has had that opportunity in the past, as we know, and for different reasons didn't get it. But I think this year he has the best one, and things are going for him. And even if he refuses or doesn't want to talk about it, it's clear to anybody that understands mathematics. You don't even have to understand racing cars, just mathematics. He has the opportunity, and he should get it, as long as he keeps running.
But with your understanding of mathematics, you wouldn't say the championship is entirely over?
Oh, only if he stops running. That's the only thing that will change the final result in the 92 season.
So that's the opinion of the reigning world champion. We await the arrival of the current world championship leader, Nigel Mansell, here onto pole position in the next few minutes. But right now, we'll hear for the first time this afternoon, up in the commentary tower, Murray Walker.
Thank you, Steve, and what an absolutely fabulous atmosphere there is at Silverstone. Because I came in early this morning, I was talking to one of the policemen who was on duty just outside the gate, and I said, how long has it been like this, meaning the crush of people trying to get in. He said, I set off from home at 4 o'clock, and it took me an hour to get to my post. That's how many people are trying to get into Silverstone to see what they hope and expect to see to be the race of their lives. Because, although I mustn't overstate things, if Nigel Mansell wins, as a lot of people hope and indeed expect him to do today, I think the place is going to erupt. I remember quite emotionally so many times in the past seeing people come round on their victory laps, and in particular last year when the crowd invaded the course, surrounded Nigel jubilantly as they did in 1987, and it is a heartwarming sight. And then being a British crowd, of course, they go back to where they came from. Well, what are Mansell's chances of doing it again and becoming the most successful British driver of all time? He is already, of course, the most successful English driver of all time. Well, he's now equalled the great Jackie Stewart's record of 27 victories. One more would make him the most successful British driver. and obviously his chances have to be very good. The Renault engine, which is powering him, I was talking to Bernard Dudot, the designer, just a few minutes ago, and he was saying that he feels pretty happy. The engine has not had any kind of a failure in 18 months, and that is a really incredible record when you bear in mind how highly stressed these racing engines are and what sort of power they're producing. So Nigel looks as though he's got the right sort of engine, and there he is, the man that all eyes are on from henceforth, and he's got the right chassis. We know that because Williams have been honing and honing and honing that semi-automatic gearbox and the reactive springless suspension, which has served him so well this year, and indeed served him so well last year, because 5 wins last year, second in the World Championship, 6 wins already this year. But there are other people in this race, and with no hesitation at all, I take my hat off to Nigel's teammate Riccardo Patrese, particularly bearing in mind the fact that Riccardo Patrese, absolutely through no fault of his own, was taken off the circuit at very great speed yesterday, straight into the wall, and he was out of the car, and that was in the morning. He was out of the car and into the spare car yesterday afternoon. A new car has been built up for him overnight. He has been out in the warm-up this morning, the final half hour of practice, in which, surprise, surprise, Mansell was fastest. But Riccardo Patrese, there he is, the most experienced driver in Grand Prix racing, with an amazing 232 Grand Prix behind him. And he was second quickest in the warm-up this morning. But very heartening indeed for British viewers is the fact that Martin Brundle was 4th fastest this morning in his Benetton, looking very good indeed. And there is the view across Silverstone, on which so much money has been spent by the owning British Racing Drivers Club. They call it the home of British motor racing, and indeed they're right. And there are corporate guests, paying spectators all around the circuit, and that is what they think of Silverstone and the man Mansell. And in my eyes at the present moment is Johnny Herbert, another man, another British driver who has really come good this season. He was 7th fastest in the warm-up this morning. He starts 7th fastest on the grid, and he is in the new Lotus with its Ford V8 engine. He's just leaving the pit lane and driving round the circuit. And we're going through this rather unusual situation now, to many people's eyes, although it's quite usual in Grand Prix racing, of drivers going out of the pits, ostensibly to take up their position on the grid, only to come in at the end of the lap into the pit lane again. And that's very often because either they want some minor adjustment to be made to the car, or because they just want to do another practice lap, and that's what most of them are doing now. So at Silverstone, the British Grand Prix sees the second half of the 16 race World Championship. This is round 9, and that is the situation. A very commanding 32-point lead for Nigel Mansell ahead of his Williams Renault teammate Riccardo Patrese. Then the superb and amazing 23-year-old young German Michael Schumacher. He still hasn't completed a full 16-race series of Grand Prix racing. He only made his debut in the Belgian Grand Prix last year, and he's 3rd in the championship, ahead of Ayrton Senna, the reigning world champion, and Gerhard Berger. Now, I've just seen Nigel Mansell earlier on, and ever conscious of the support that he's getting from the crowd here, he was earlier on waving to them and getting a tremendous response. Whether he's going to do it now, but we're looking at him, I do not know. But he's, well, he's speeded up now. He's paying attention, both hands on the wheel. There he is, yes, off comes the hand. There's the wave, and there's the response. Now, I do seriously believe that Nigel Mansell is consciously psyching himself up. He feeds on the adulation of the crowd. It gives him an extra shot of adrenaline, and he's going to need it all at the start. He benefits from an unusual still engineering attribute in the Williams-Renault, which only Ferrari share. He has a thing called traction control in the car, and I won't bore you with all the details of it, but basically it enables him to avoid any or excessive wheel spin at the start. And when you're punching 800 horsepower through those rear wheels at the start, you don't want spinning wheels. There's the Constructors' Championship, and it needs no words from me to tell you how far ahead Williams-Renault are, because they have won all the races here except this year, except Monaco and Canada. And of course Patrese has backed up Nigel Mansell with second place in South Africa and Mexico, in Brazil, in San Marino and in France. But Benetton could well, as they have before this season, pass McLaren into second place in the Constructors' Championship, and that must be their realistic target. And an interesting technical point is that Williams have the Renault V10 engine, and behind them McLaren have a V12, and behind them Benetton have a V8. And that is the colourful grid lineup on the curve at Silverstone, which is being used for the second time in its revised format. From the previous circuit, which had the fastest lap of all in Grand Prix racing ever, Keke Rosberg did a lap here in the McLaren at a whisker over 160 miles an hour. But then they introduced the new section from Maggots through to Chapel, which is a couple of S-bends. Then at the end of the Hangar Straight and Stowe Corner, a couple of bends and a dip and a rise. And then after Abbey Curve, a series of a right-hander, tremendously fast right-hander, 160 miles an hour. That's Riccardo Patrese at Bridge. Then the two left-handers, and Keke Rosberg. My apologies to the McLaren team, and to the Williams team for that matter, because Keke, of course, was in the Williams at Silverstone when he did that tremendous lap. So the tension is rising all the time. The expectations of the crowd and us, of course, are rising. There he is, and being fitted to the wheels now, the electrically heated blankets, because Nigel Mansell, like everybody else, has done his parade sighting laps. He's got the tyres up to racing temperature, and it's very important indeed that they be at a critical temperature in order to provide the maximum grip and traction on the circuit. And now that temperature is being maintained by electrically heated blankets, which will be removed at the very last moment. There's Steve Ryder on the left.
Nigel Mansell now waiting in the car. Nigel, can you describe through your face mask and your helmet there the scene that greeted you as you drove around the circuit a moment or two ago?
Yeah, that's how we set up traffic. We're assuming straight through.
Yeah, I'm just talking to the BBC now, so if you can stop transmission just for a minute, but we've got a game plan out, so we're okay. Hi, how you doing, Steve?
I'm not bad. Battling to talk to you a bit. You're going to keep the helmet on, are you?
Well, yeah, we're still talking about strategy for the race. We don't know whether we're going to make a tyre stop or not. It depends on the temperature. If it gets really warm, then we might have to stop the tyres. If it stays cool like this, we might be able to go all the way through the race. So we're still talking with the engineers now, and we're still making the decision as we're actually sort of sitting here talking to you.
Okay, shall we give it a couple of minutes and try and have another word with you?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
I never cease to marvel at the cool of drivers at a time like this. Nigel Mansell is sitting there in the car. He knows that the eyes of the world, and especially Britain, are on him. He knows he has won 6 races this year. This is the most important race of the year. He's grappling with technicalities of how to set up the car and whether or not to make a tyre change, which is extremely important. And yet he finds time coolly and calmly to talk to Steve Ryder, and therefore to us. And on the right now, the man who's talking to him is Peter Windsor, who is the team manager of the Williams team. The man with the headset on now and the fair hair is David Brown, who is Nigel Mansell's race engineer, and on the extreme right of the picture in the dark glasses behind Peter Windsor, well, you would have seen Sheridan Thin. You probably will see him again in a moment when... there he is. That is Sheridan Thin. And he is the commercial director of Williams. The man responsible for getting the money. And there's no more important man in a racing team when you consider that the Williams team, like McLaren, Ferrari and Benetton, are looking for sponsorship of the order of £20 million a year.
Nigel Mansell now out of his car, acknowledging the crowd. I never like to interrupt you at the office, but obviously still a lot of work, a lot of preparation going on here. But sum up the mood that you're in at the moment.
Pretty high. Firing on all 18 cylinders. I think my engine, instead of being a V10 Renault, I think is about a V18 today. But fairly happy, a few butterflies, but then that's normal. Concerned, the engineers, we've just been talking at length about obviously what the weather's going to do, and we can't predict. It's at these times we'd like 3 helicopters encircling the circuit about 3 or 4 miles away, and they can actually radio down to the pit then if it's raining, give us some advance warning. But obviously that isn't feasible, but it would be good if we could. We just got to wait and see what happens.
Sum up the question marks in your mind then about the setup for the car in these conditions, and tyres and that possibility of rain then.
Well, you have to compromise because you don't want to go for a wet setup, and obviously we're hoping it's not going to rain, so we've gone completely for a dry setup. So then if it does rain, it's going to be obviously on its tippy toes, but it's going to be the same for everybody. I think anybody who goes for a wet setup when we start the race dry is sort of playing a joker, if you like. But I think we're in good shape. It's just that there's so many things that you have to sort of talk about before the race now that you can get sidetracked sometimes, just like I'm being now.
Won't delay you too long, but that atmosphere around the circuit, crowds bigger than ever.
I mean, electrifying. I mean, I was going to do another lap just to wave to them, but no, I thought I'd come straight to the grid. I mean, on the warm-up lap, everybody stood up, and, you know, the corners, Beckett's, Stowe and Club, and coming into Woodcote here. I mean, just unbelievable. Now, I've raced here a long time now, and they've surpassed everything that's been previous.
Final word on race tactics. You're on pole, Riccardo Patrese alongside you. Relationship between the two of you, no team orders?
No team orders, and the relationship couldn't be better. You know, fortunately, I think I'm a little bit quicker here than Riccardo anyway, so if he does make a fantastic start, I can sort of hopefully pick my time. But I mean, Riccardo and I can race wheel to wheel, and we know we're not going to do anything. The only team orders we have in the team is that we mustn't knock one another off, and that's obvious, but besides that, we can race hard.
The butterflies are mounting with you and everyone around the circuit. Very best wishes.
Okay, look, they've got a new driver now. I mean, I've been out of the car for 5 minutes, and they've got a new driver in there. I'll tell you what, I'll give him 10% if he drives and wins.
I think he gladly accepted as well. Good luck.
Thank you.
Well, there you see the Silverstone airfield, the helicopters at Silverstone on British Race Day literally are like Apocalypse Now when they're at their height. There's a solid stream of them coming down, putting their passengers down and then flying away. And there is a greater number of helicopter movements at British Grand. There's His Royal Highness Prince Michael. And with him in the cap is Geoffrey Rose, who is the chairman of the Royal Automobile Club. Well, Nigel's certainly having his distractions before the race begins. He's got to start contemplating the 59 laps that he's got to do. Frank Williams, the man to whom the hearts of racing fans all over the world reach out, controlling his team as well as he does in adversity. And that's it, a glorious Silverstone, and the weather forecast seems to be pretty good. We don't have any positive forecast of rain, and we're keeping our fingers crossed. But with that, thousands of helicopter movements, as I was saying. They're still coming into the circuit, and I expect they will continue to do so. As you see the grid unroll, the Williams cars in the front row of the grid, followed by Ayrton Senna, the world champion, third on the grid. Then the Benetton of Michael Schumacher, followed by the McLaren of Gerhard Berger. Sixth position on the grid, Martin Brundle in the second Benetton. Seventh, and ahead of both the Ferraris, Johnny Herbert's Lotus, followed by Alesi's Ferrari and Mika Häkkinen's Lotus. Mika Häkkinen didn't take part in the warm-up this morning. His alarm clock did not go off, and Mika slept in and understandably leapt into his motor car and set off for the circuit, perhaps a little quicker than he should have done, as a result of which he had a brush with the law. Right, Nigel Mansell, pole position, World Championship leader, 66 points, and he is 32 points ahead of the nearest rival, which is Riccardo Patrese. And there is the Italian looking remarkably composed after his very, very heavy crash yesterday, as he talks to Prince Michael. And that row of sixes means that he has had a number of second places in South Africa, Mexico, Brazil, and San Marino, and the last race in France. 10 points for a win, 6 points for a second place. Ayrton Senna, 3 times world champion, starting here third on the grid. As you see, a mere 18 points, because in the 8 races that have been held thus far this year, he has only finished 3 times. He won, of course, in Monaco, his sole victory of the year. And he and Ron Dennis, the McLaren team boss, are the first to admit that their car is not as good as the Williams-Renault this year. Fourth position on the grid, the young German, 23-year-old Michael Schumacher. The car in front of him is the Benetton Ford. Michael comes from Cologne. This is only his 15th Grand Prix, and look at that, 26 points already this season, which makes him third in the World Championship, 8 points behind Riccardo Patrese. And this is his first Grand Prix at Silverstone. On goes the flame retardant balaclava. And this is the enormously likeable Austrian Gerhard Berger, ex-Ferrari, ex-ATS, ex-Benetton. He's won for Benetton, he's won for Ferrari, he's won, of course, for McLaren. He's talking to Bernie Ecclestone, the czar of Formula One and Grand Prix racing, the man who controls virtually every aspect of it. And Gerhard Berger is starting 5th on the grid, 6th fastest in the warm-up this morning. Incidentally, Mansell and Patrese were fastest and 2nd fastest in the warm-up. And now, next to Nigel Mansell, the top British driver on the grid. 1988 sports world champion of Martin Brundle, driving for Jaguar. He won for Jaguar at Le Mans in 1990. This is his 87th Grand Prix. 3rd place in France, his first official podium position. I say official because he actually finished 2nd in the Detroit Grand Prix in a Tyrrell previously, and was excluded from the results through absolutely no fault of his own after having driven a magnificent race. And there in the red tie and the flat hat is the great Jackie Stewart, 3 times world champion, in the opinion of many people, the greatest driver of all time, certainly one of them in the opinion of virtually everybody. And he's with Prince William, young Prince William, and Jackie Stewart, the winner of 27 Grand Prix, an honour which he shares now with Nigel Mansell. And this is Romford's Johnny Herbert in the Lotus, the new Lotus, and Johnny is about to drive in his 22nd Grand Prix, having recovered from truly appalling leg injuries from a dreadful crash in a Formula 3000 race at Brands Hatch in 1988. He's the man who won with Volker Wiedler and Bertrand Gachot, last year's 24-hour race at Le Mans in a Mazda, and he finished 4th in another Mazda this year. And after all the agony and travail that he's gone through, at last Johnny is coming good. Those are the eyes of Jean Alesi, the French Sicilian, 8th on the grid in his Ferrari. It's not been a good year for him any more than last year was with Ferrari. Alesi drove an absolute storm of a race in France last Sunday and was running 3rd for a long time on slick tyres, that means to say non-treaded tyres in wet conditions. And he was keeping up with Riccardo Patrese, who was 2nd and who was on wet tyres. And actually, Jean said yesterday, when the conditions were really dreadful at Silverstone, the track was practically underwater, and Jean said, they may not like it, but I like it because it evens my chances, and I can drive well in the wet. He certainly can, but his wish has been denied him. I'm glad to say, from our point of view, and virtually everybody else's, because it looks like being, we pray, a dry race at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. Jean Alesi then. Slightly modified suspension in the Ferrari to improve its handling. So, 2 Williams in the front row, then a McLaren of Senna, the Benetton of Schumacher, the McLaren of Gerhard Berger, the Benetton of Martin Brundle, the Lotus of Johnny Herbert. Magnificent drive that, because, as I say, he's ahead of both the Ferraris. We've just seen Jean Alesi in 8th position. 9th and 10th for the record, Mika Häkkinen, who has reached the course safely and will be taking part in the British Grand Prix. And in 10th position, Eric Comas, who crashed into Riccardo Patrese yesterday, but apart from a bruised leg, is okay. Nigel Mansell, pole position. And Ligier have brought in a new car from their factory at Magny-Cours, adjoining the French Grand Prix circuit overnight. Red 5, Nigel Mansell. Lives in Florida at the moment, still maintained his home in the Isle of Man. (1:18.965). Those figures are Nigel's time for his pole position, which was a speed of 148.04 miles an hour, and that was exactly 2 seconds faster than his pole position time last year. And when I say to the cognoscenti that last year Nigel was on qualifying tyres and this year he was on race tyres, which have a harder rubber compound and therefore a longer life but less grip, you will appreciate what a titanic lap that was. The Fab Four: Mansell, Brundle, Herbert, Warwick. Derek Warwick not here, of course, but he's just won at Le Mans for Peugeot and wishes, as does virtually everybody, that he's back in Formula One. 59 laps, 191.573 miles, to be absolutely exact about it. Nigel Mansell has the lap record, which he achieved last year in his Williams Renault, and that was a time of 1 minute 26.379, a speed of 135 miles an hour. So Mansell's pole position speed today was an almost, yesterday was, sorry, I'll get it right in a minute, Friday, was an almost unbelievable 13 miles an hour faster than his fastest lap last year, under different conditions, of course. And that's the new complex at Silverstone that you're looking at now, because you are actually looking at the right-hand corner at Bridge, which leads into the 2 left-handers at Priory, and just about at the top of your pictures there are the 2 right-hand bends at Luffield, Luffield 1 and Luffield 2, which lead into the old Woodcote corner, tremendously fast in the old days, about 160 miles an hour. It's been slowed down a bit now, quite deliberately. Well, that's it. That is the run down to Copse Corner. And when they approach that at racing speed, they will be doing 180 miles an hour on just the other side of the bridge. Down into fifth gear. And that is the exit from Copse Corner, which leads into the fast left-hand sweeper, fifth gear at Maggots, a possible overtaking point. And then into the new complex of bends, right, left at Beckett's. This is it, where there are 4.5 G loadings on the driver. 4.5 G on the right-hander, then in the opposite direction, 4.5 G on the left-hander, then the same again. Well, we're up here in the commentary position overlooking all this lot, and to some extent we're divorced from it, but I can tell you nevertheless that we can feel the tension increasing. As ever, here at Silverstone, just as at every other Grand Prix, I'm watching Kenneth Clark, the Home Office, arriving now. Great motor racing fan, and he's walking towards the front of the grid. So he's joining Prince Michael. And Mansell, just to say again, pole position. And I was just explaining that that run down to Copse, the first corner, is just as important here as it is the first corner everywhere else. Pat Patrese second, third and fourth, Senna and Schumacher, fifth and sixth, Berger and Brundle, seventh and eighth, Herbert and Alesi, ninth and 10th, Hakkinen and Comas, 11th and 12th, Gasho and Alboreto, 13th and 14th, Boots and Capelli, 15-16, Tarquini Katayama, 17-18, Suzuki de Cesaris, 19-20, later Griar, 21-22, Wendlinger Martini, 23-24, Modena Gugelmin, 25, Morbidelli, and 26, Damon Hill, son of the great Graham, who is starting his first Grand Prix at Silverstone, where Graham Hill announced his retirement from racing in 1975. A very emotional time for Damon. Driving Brabham Judd, but he is test driver for this man, Nigel Mansell, because Damon Hill is very much responsible through his test driving ability for the development and the constant improvement of the Williams-Renault cars that there he is in the new colour scheme Brabham, with a Judd V10 engine behind him, and he will be aiming to finish the race above all else. Staggered grid, that is again another safety feature, means the man in pole position has actually got a car's length start over the man who is in second place, so that will be an added benefit for Nigel Mansell. You may recall that last year Senna got away magnificently at Silverstone and was taken and lost the lead to Nigel Mansell at Stowe Corner on the first lap. The press corps, the cameramen, the television commentators and services are all here in massive numbers. And I hear in the background the klaxon horns. The next thing that happens, of course, with 1 minute, 60 seconds to go. And as I say that, the sun comes out and bathes the grid in bright sunlight at the front, a very good sign. I look around the sky, we're pretty high up here, and I can see some blue sky, as you can now, and there are clouds amongst it, but we're in for a great race.
Yes, engine's running. I'm just looking up and down the grid. I see no arms raised. The grid pretty much clear. We get a green flag as we look at poleman Nigel Mansell, the hottest favourite in a Grand Prix for many years. Absolutely dominated practice and qualifying, and away they go. This, remember, is just the parade lap. And warming tyres, Mansell will lead them round, and going into Copse Corner, they approach that at 180 miles an hour on top, break down to fifth gear, slot it down under a very quick corner indeed, Copse, and now up the short straight,
flat-out kink there at Maggots, and then on the brakes and into the right, left, right complex of Beckett's, which is taken in 4th gear, and now accelerating out and away down the hanger straight. And Mansell going quite quickly. At this stage on the warm-up lap, he'll want to warm his tyres up. Remember, this is where he flew past Senna on the straight. The Renault really surprised everybody, the power of it last year in the Grand Prix, particularly Senna. And now, having gone through Stowe corner, Mansell will start to slow it up. Down into the Vale, with a tight left-hander. Then into the old club corner as they accelerate away. It's a slow 2nd gear corner at the Vale, now accelerating right up through the gearbox and onto the fastest part of the circuit as they go over 180 miles an hour, 185, depending on the wind, of course. The wind, the direction of the wind makes a difference here. The wind is not strong today. We've had some quite strong winds in qualifying and earlier this morning, but it's dropped. And now into the very, very quick bridge corner, taken pretty much flat in top gear, maybe not on full tanks. Corner is slightly banked, big G-loads through that corner, and as they come out of it, still doing probably 170 miles an hour, hard on the brakes, and now into the slow complex Priory, 2nd gear all the way around Brooklands, and then the right-hander at Luffield, all 2nd gear, this complex, and then in the normal way, booting it away and into Woodcote, which is taken flat out, up through the gearbox, into 6th gear, and over the start-finish line. So Nigel Mansell leading the field onto the grid. Now he'll slow it right down. He wants the grid to form up behind him as quickly as possible, which is why he's allowing the cars behind him to close up, because he wants, and there we look at the track, there is the map of the track. You see the checkered flag, that's where they're pulling up for the start at the top of the picture at the start. And Mansell will want everybody to close up because he doesn't want to keep there. Remember, these cars don't have fans. The water temperature will be rising. You can see the heat haze produced by these 800 horsepower engines, and you won't want to sit with the car in gear, with the clutch dragging, the water temperature rising for too long.
And there are still cars coming up to a standstill at the back of the grid, and that's the sign. As ever, watch the lights, and it is 59 laps, the British Grand Prix of 1992.